about the First World War. In the end, there were so many movies about World War II in the last decades. Did you have a specific reason to choose the First World War?
I've always been more interested in the First World War. For me, partly because I don't feel it's been done justice in film, and I've never been put into the war in the way that I felt might be interesting. Also, my own grandfather fought in the First World War and told me stories about it. And so for me, it was a very personal relationship with the war because, you know, I grew up with those stories. So that was probably the reason that when I was thinking of writing a script, because this is the first movie script I've ever written, that this was the story I wanted to tell.
The First World War was, above all, the war of trenches. What challenge did you face in bringing the First World War back to life visually and acoustically?
Well, the challenge is that the war, really the First World War was a war of paralysis. It was a war in which, you know, people lost, hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives fighting over 200 or 300 yards of land. But I wanted this movie to be a movie about a journey, carrying a message. And so I had to find a time in the war when they were able to make a journey. And there was a moment in 1917 when the Germans retreated to the Hindenburg Line. And suddenly the British were cut adrift on a land that they'd been fighting over but never seen. They didn't know whether the Germans retreated, withdrawn, or surrendered. And it's in that period of uncertainty that our two central characters make their journey. And one of the things that was exciting to me about that was it meant that it took the characters out of the conventional landscape of World War I, which is trenches and mud, and into another series of landscapes, farmhouses and orchards and quarries and canals and burning towns and rivers and forests. And that felt to me like a movie that had a variety of different atmospheres. And so suddenly it felt possible to make a movie about this war, which was not the cliche.
Did you have a specific reason why you call your film 1917, why you choose this year and not another?
Well, 1917 was the year that the Hindenburg Line, the Germans retreated to the Hindenburg Line. So in a way, it was almost impossible to tell this story in any other year because this is a particular situation that happened in April of 17.
Which films were an influence for your war film, and would you say that your film is an anti-war film or a war film?
Well, I think all war films are anti-war films. I think there are very few pro-war films, so it's definitely an anti-war film. And in that respect, you know, it's also, relatively speaking, apolitical film. I mean, it's not it's not very political. It's not about the British specifically. I do think this same movie could be told about two French soldiers, two German soldiers within the same war. So I think it's important that there's some sort of a universal truth to it. But what was the other question? I can't remember.
Which kind of influence?
Oh, the influence. You know, very few. We didn't, it was so unlike any other film. We kept trying to think of things that it was similar to, but really our main influences were photographs of the period, because there was no film that really behaved in this way. I mean, we Roger and Deakins, the cinematographer, and I have favourite war movies like there's an amazing movie called Come and See by Klima, The Battle of Algiers, you know, Paths of Glory, the obvious ones, but none were like this particularly, and so. We sort of tried to make our own rules as much as possible.
And why did you choose to film this movie in one shot? Or is that...
It was an emotional choice, really. I just wanted the audience to feel they were connected to the central characters, and they would never be able to escape from that journey, and to feel every second passing as the clock ran down, to every step with them, breathe every breath with them. You know, there's a kind of weird claustrophobia that sets in when you realize you're locked in with this journey. And you have to see it through to the end. And I felt that was best achieved without any cuts.
And you did a war film before, Jarhead, which is about monotony, and this film is contrary to the idea of Jarhead, or is it?
It is. It's very different, yeah. Although there are some similarities in that, again, I kind of asked myself as a filmmaker, what would it be if someone like me, who doesn't want to go to war, who is basically a coward, was sent to war, you know? That was my starting point for both movies. But yeah, that was a war in which, you know, that was felt to be a successful war, but was subsequently revealed to not have been, to have been the beginning of an American relationship in the Middle East, which unraveled and got worse and worse from that point. And this is quite a different war, and the history, you know, this is a fulcrum of history where a war that started with, you know, horses and infantry and ended with tanks and machine guns. It's the first weapons of mass destruction, and you know, death and casualties on a massive scale. And so, yeah, it couldn't be more different in that respect.
How did you find your fine actors?
All right. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks for making duty.
Thank you.